Call the meeting to order. For those who care to, please rise for an opening prayer and a salute to our American flag. Dr. Ward, would you open us in a word of prayer, please?
Father, always grateful to come before you at these meetings, and continually thank you for the residents of our great community, and I thank you for the men and women who serve the city, for fellow council folk. We just ask you to keep your hand of blessing upon us. And then we also continue to think about our neighbors to the west, and we're thankful for the huge support that's come in for them, but we realize that that whole process is so long, and we believe that you are directly involved through communities of faith. And we bring these things to you tonight because we believe you care. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under Mayor's announcements, we have a few things under Mayor's announcements. However, I want to make sure that I'm going to take some of these out of order, so just follow along. We have 2 reappointments for the EEZ Board. Steve Lopekamp, his appointment is set to expire, or for to expire on 7/25/16. I'd like to reappoint Mr. Lopekamp to the EEZ Board. Need a motion?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Also like to appoint Mr. Daniel Harder from Ward 4, also to the EEZ Board as the council representative. That appointment will also set to expire on 7/25/2016. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Officer Roger Stewart is our employee of the quarter number 2 for 2011. Officer Stewart, would you please come stand at the podium for a second?
You're still on the board. You were appointed till 16.
I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to read quite a bit here, but I want everybody to take a look at this picture of Officer Stewart with that big, heavy mustache. No, I did not take a marker and put that on there. Get that visual, look at him, and read this. Mr. Roger Stewart began his career with the City of Republic, Missouri in 1998 as a reserve police officer. He was hired as full-time officer in 2000 and served the patrol division. During his employment, he performs all the duties required as a police officer, as a leader in the area of traffic enforcement and self-initiated activity. Roger is also a training officer and participated in the training of newly hired officers for several years. He has a reputation of completing outstanding written evaluations on his trainees and is trained in investigation as part of a 3-person team that investigates serious accidents for the department. Roger is also assigned to supervise the maintenance and certification of all department radar equipment, responsible for the department's DWI enforcement efforts. This includes state certification of the department's data master and portable breath testers. He's also the department's liaison with the courts on DWI and radar certification issues. Officer Stewart is a member of the Community 2000 Foundation. He's also in 2010 on behalf of the department. He partnered with Community 2000 to establish the first volunteer prescription medication take-back program. It's a mouthful. And was a preventive effort to keep prescription drugs from being abused and falling into the wrong hands. He's worked with our Parks Department to schedule basketball game between Springfield and Republic Police Department, which does raise quite a bit of money, and has been donated to our Republic Veterans Memorial Fund. He's a representative of the first annual Guardian Bowl game held on behalf of the Green County Club. He's also done quite a bit of other stuff. There's a whole laundry list. We've cut it down just to some of that stuff right there. But the one thing that we want to also mention too is that he has participated in the annual Help Relay for Life, but also the Shop with a Hero to bring Christmas presents to underprivileged children. That is a wonderful program held by the police department. Officer Stewart is a dedicated veteran officer with the Republic Police Department, shares much of his personal time giving back to the community. He is well known and respected by those he serves. Officer Roger Stewart has earned the distinction of being Employee of the Quarter for second quarter 2011, and I certainly appreciate it. Jim and I got to go out to the DW point on Friday night and watch Officer Stewart and some of the officers in action. It was quite the well-oiled machine, I must add, and a lot of that goes right back to Officer Stewart and how he has conducted some of these programs and helped Republic become an established leader in the DWI checkpoint program. The class, if I'm not mistaken, that was training on that particular night?
That's correct. Actually, that's Detective John Davis, who's the training coordinator, trying to get out to reach enforcement communities. So they have his Friday checkpoint supervisor training course. So they had several agencies, Jefferson City, local aid, Wright County. They had a class, and they participated in that, then came out and observed the sobriety checkpoint.
That was a great time. But anyway, congratulations, Officer Stewart. We've got some things we're going to give you. Great. On behalf of the City of Republic, be sure you turn this way. Yeah, you can don't get the auditor.
Put your hands on the wall.
Yeah. Name will go on this plaque, which it already is, and it's going to go up right here. I'll take, thank you. And you keep the one with the mustache. We kept the one with the mustache. See, look at that. He's rocking that stash.
That was a requirement when I first came on to the department.
Obviously, Chief likes it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Also here tonight, we have a proclamation for the 150th anniversary of the battle at Wilson's Creek. And Ted Helmer's here as well. Welcome, Ted. I'm going to read the proclamation. If you would, you'll stand at the podium. I think it's for us, but I will read this first. The 150th anniversary of the battle at Wilson's Creek. Whereas the 150th anniversary of the battle of Wilson's Creek causes us to pause and remember the history of Missouri and this great nation and the men who fought in the battle of Wilson's Creek. And whereas the American Civil War has been described as the greatest disaster ever to befall our nation and the era of our greatest achievement. Either description underscores the Civil War's enduring relevance to America and the country. And whereas the issues that stood at the heart of the crisis 150 years ago remain current and relevant today and serve as points of departure for the ongoing quest for legal for all Americans, the still vigorous debate over the appropriate reach of federal government and never-ending effort to reconcile differing cultural values held under a single national flag. Historical landmark preservation and operation is a testament to the generosity, hard work, and dedication shown by the Wilson's Creek National Battlefield Foundation and services. And whereas over 185,000 visitors and 7,000 students visit this special park every year, and now therefore, the Mayor of the City of Republic urges citizens to remember the brave men who fought and died at Wilson's Creek and thank Wilson's Creek Battlefield for everything that you do to preserve our nation's legacy. In testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and fix the seal of the City of Republic this 25th day of July, 2011 AD. So I'd like to present that. Sir, I think you have some things for us and give us a brief overview. Yes. Oh, yeah, we got to take a picture. Oh, so, and don't get the auditor in the picture. Okay. Marshall, I'm sorry. I guess your time's coming.
We'll take your picture later. First of all, I wanted to tell this group, and I know all of you know this, but it's been a privilege to work with your staff over the last 5 or 6 months here, I would say, on the Republic Parade we're doing here, so it's been a great cooperation there, and I just appreciate the city putting their arms around us, and also, especially this proclamation, I would like to know if, I guess I've talked indirectly through you, but if you could come on the 10th.
Yes, sir.
Dress casually. It will be outside. It'll be at the Ray House. Steve, I can't predict the weather, so I don't even want to go down that direction. But it should be warm, and it'll be a couple hours out in son of, Republic. But again, that's gonna be on the 10th, and also if you could maybe take this and show up on the 12th, we're having our actual reenactment. We do have two events, and sometimes that gets confusing with people. The actual anniversary is the 10th of August, happens to be on, and we'll have that at 6:30 in the evening, roughly, and hopefully get started by 7, and you can imagine corralling 500 people. We'll hope to be ready by, and that will last for a couple hours. If you've never been to a actual anniversary event, this is our 150th. This will be the best there has been over the last 150 years, because I'm biased on that statement. But about 20 years ago, they had a special ceremony, I think it's called, we'll have 100 reenactors there on Wednesday evening, and the last reading of this vignette will talk about the soldiers that gave up. And these candles will be lit by about 100 reenactors, about 20 spaces between each other, and they'll leave the Ray House, go down to the spring. It will be definitely, you can see a light of candles all the way down, so it should be very impressive. Again, just our reenactors have done a great job. So that's on Wednesday, and governor's event, the signature event, it's called, through the state, so the governor will be there, and we're excited to have him there representing the state and also for the state of Missouri, so we're excited about that. And then, of course, 2 days later, on Friday morning, but also mostly an educational opportunity for, I guess, school kids and the teachers and those parents of those kids. That will be free Thursday evening. That's kind of a dress rehearsal, if you might want to call that, for the reenactors and for the vendors and people like that. But it'll be an opportunity to let students come in and see the actual event without any charge. We want to make sure this is an event, and I know the economy is not as great as I understand that. We're not charging for parking for the event. We are charging for adults. Anybody under 12 and under is free. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And also the park will be open free that weekend too. So we're trying to make this an event for the family, and it is an event. We're on this morning, Jim Cox and myself, who is the chairman for the reenactment committee, and we really want to do something different. Some of you were there in 1991. Organized this event, and his brother Stormy. I don't know too much about the 2001 issue. That was in April, and I think it rained. It got kind of muddy in Mr. Blunt's property. But this is down in Wilson's Creek area, just north of the actual park boundary where it was in 91. Are at the creek right there north of the park is where the event will be at. But again, it will be an event for the entire family. There'll be games, there'll be music. There'll be an opportunity to kind of enlist and kind of be a soldier for an hour, or how long you can stand that. There'll also be vendors, of course. There'll be a wedding. There'll be a church service on Sunday. There'll be a ball. There'll be a fashion show for the ladies. Those are just some of the things. We're just not making this a reenactment like it was in 91. So there'll be events all the way through the day. We've been working with about the traffic issues. They think we have a better solution this time we did in 1991, and I think I do too. So again, we're trying to be for everybody. It will be on Friday morning. We'll start around 9 o'clock, and we try to keep the noise pollution until about 10:30 that evening. But these are 3,000 reenactors, and you can imagine what they will do after hours, but then we'll try to control them as much as possible. We're also expecting about 60,000 people or more, and if the weather holds for us and things happen to us, we'll probably get that. So we're very excited. The foundation is very excited to bring this to the community, and I'm very glad that the city is putting their arms around us, and we appreciate that very much. But again, there will be reenactments every day. The big one will be on Sunday from about 12 to about 1:30ish or 2ish. And then the reenactors have a day job, and that starts on Monday at 8 o'clock, so they'll leave right after that to go back home. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those. If not, just wanted to tell you thank you. I have some brochures here, too. If you wanted some of those, I can leave those with you, Brian.
Yes.
And also, I have a brochure for the parade. It seems like we have a another mayor from another community that's already signed up to be in the parade, and I would like to see the Republic was, present at that parade. I don't have a vehicle that will seat maybe all the councilmen, but maybe we can find something, but not that I want to throw that out there, but I would like to have all you guys be there.
Thank you, I've already heard from the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, good. I'm sorry, Julie mentioned that.
Yeah, Julie mentioned it, I'm sure she did a couple different times.
So anyway, we're excited about that. We have about 18 entries already, and we expect about another 10. If you've never seen caisson, and you've probably heard the Marine song, as the caissons go rolling along, there'll be a caisson from Nebraska coming down for that, and it's probably about 50 yards long when you put the horse and the caisson and the limber and the cannon together, so should be a very, very impressive sight. And our committee got the money for that, so again, they've done a great job for the community, and we're really looking forward to kind of highlighting our veterans, but also promoting the reenactments. I do have some, I don't want to call them gifts, but if you're interested in taking those, I can do that, but if not, if it's against the rules, I'm going to turn in that group here, or...
Oh, the attorney sits
Oh,
right
that's
next
right,
to
Ron, I'm forgetting. But we do have some buttons, and we hope to have you guys come out and see us. And this is the 150th, of course. This is the best there gets. And we're very excited about that.
Thank you, sir.
I want to make sure the auditor gets one.
Can I get a picture?
Now we're okay.
We're fine then, okay, great. I didn't want to get his picture taken there, but also we have some just notepads. If you forget the date of the reenactment, we will, you can have those right in front of you every second. And I know some of you have already purchased your tickets for the reenactment. Some of you may be going out of town, but that's all right, we'll take your money anyway. And I'm not bashful about this, so,
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm gonna have to make this, otherwise I'm gonna take some heat on it.
But again, we're very excited, and thank you again for your support. This is a major event for the community, and I'm very glad the governor's coming down to highlight this. It'll be a special thing for the state and also for this area. So again, we're praying, Steve, for good weather, and I know we'll get that. So, any questions? If not, I appreciate your time and allowing me to talk about something.
Council, do you have any questions or anything?
We're gonna make it right.
Oh, yeah, for him, not for me. Yes.
What were the dates again?
The 12th through the 14th of August, and the 10th is our anniversary date on a Wednesday.
Ted, thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
And,
I appreciate the
certainly appreciate you
proclamation.
coming, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you on the 6th, 10th, and the 12th, for sure. Well, Marshall Decker's up. He is here to present our 2010 audit. Marshall, the floor is yours.
Just to, Walter picks everything apart, and just to show you my past knowledge. Caisson is an Army song, not a Marine song. Caissons go rolling. No big deal. Army, though, had more intelligence than Marine. Any Marines behind me?
You'll never know.
You'll never hear it coming.
And this is, huh?
You can read and write, that's the reason.
Correct. And he made me an officer. This is more winnings than Brian got Saturday, I'd like you to know.
Is that more winnings than you got Saturday?
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
and it was a heat stroke.
No, I kid.
Okay, I'll kind of go through the highlights. Anytime, stop, ask me a question, be glad to. Page 1 and 2 is the opinion page. And this paragraph just basically states all the following pages are covered by the opinion. The second paragraph says it's done in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. That's the basic or first level. If you get grants, then it's generally accepted governmental auditing standards. And if you love acronyms, that's GAGAS, and this is just a GAGAS, so. Third paragraph says, the statements on modified cash, which basically from monthly financial statements, we book depreciation. That's your major change as far as what I call modified cash. Paragraph is what I call clean opinion. That's one you always want. It says, in our opinion, financial statements referred to above present fair in all material respects the financial position of the city as December 31st, 2010. That next little paragraph said you adopted GASB's Government Auditing Standards 54, which just means on one page the line items in equity has a little bit different names on it than what it used to. It's really no big deal. The bottom paragraph says the budget's in the back, and page 2, it takes another page, says MD&A letter's not presented. That's something where they instituted what we call GASB 34 is it's optional for most small towns. It doesn't add that much to it. Technically, you're supposed to prepare that, and we end up having to draft it. And kind of the bottom line, it just raises your costs a little bit more on the audit, but it really doesn't omit or anywhere. Page 6 gives the highlights of all what we call governmental funds. First line is general fund, $5,024,954 revenue, $5,161,365 expenditures. Showed a net increase $263,589. Some of the numbers after that is that refunded issue. You show the loan proceeds payment on the refunded issue right below that. Transfers in exceed out, so overall the general fund increased $597,104, which brought it up to a total of $1,901,957. Cash balance unencumbered, sign your cash balances on page 5, first line across there, and the unencumbered in general funds $1,039,999. So that's not bad. It's been improved in this last few years, and that's a reasonably good balance. Rule of thumb, you'd be looking at 3 months, be $1,250,000, so $1,039,000 overall. You know, as far as having cash reserve to weather ups or downs in your revenue. Right now, what's looked like, as I see it, this part of the state, the sales tax is starting to inch its way back up and get back to 2008 was kind of the high point. It's gone down. And now it seems to be slowly kind of creeping back up, which you can see up there, sales tax third line item, that's $2.2 million. That's a good source of revenue. Street maintenance, just bottom line there, it decreased $391,161, but your capital outlay was $620,000, and it still had a remaining balance of $873,601. Park for the year netted plus $50,846. All that refunding issue was involved in the park debt, and it ended at $1,073,008. And that's pretty good balance for the park. Park normally is in and out. Any residual balance in, there's to the good on that. So park is, that'd be a good way to put it, wouldn't it? But a lot of that is that Greene County Park sales tax contributes to that. Because it's small, you see that little deal, other governmental, but the planning falls in it's a test, but I won't say figure this out, but that's it falls in that special category. Planning decreased $234,611. It always takes transport that, and it showed a net for the year $14,941, $41,800 ending balance. Of that again, it's kind of in and out. You would have much more of a balance than that. So all your governmental funds ended the year with reasonably decent balances. As far as the activity on water, you just find that on page 9. These are what we call a business, you'd say, the P&L, profit and loss. Naturally, they have a different name for them, but and longer. Water funds showed $1,287,607. Operating expense depreciation $1,186,797. For a net operating income of $100,810. Interest paid, odd items, still net at 87,525. Sewer, 2,519,104, expenses, 1,781, show the increase 803,023, after interest and impact fees, 547,005, net change. But now you always, on these, because depreciation and other items, you always want to flip to the next page, page 10, which is statement. And that points out on the cash, are we gaining or losing? And that's, I think, is really more important than profit and loss. Sometimes that's a little deceiving. But if you look on the water fund, it showed a decrease for the year of $10,370. Items you would pick out, why the decrease, you had capital purchase, $169,975, you had refunded, an old issue was taken out of it. But that's kind of break even on the water fund. And if you did more than $169,975 in capital items, if you did more than $150,000 in capital expenses, eating into the cash is short of it's what that's saying. Sewer fund, it showed 27,733 decrease. Notice there you had capital purchase 336,149 capital outlay. But depending on how much improvements you do would depend as far as your planning. And I think while we was doing that, you change your rates anyway. So it'll be a new picture next year to see how you're doing on your cash. But the increase should help as far as having money available for capital improvement. Sometimes folks forget, just because you have something doesn't get old or need repair. And, you know, town's old enough, your need for line replacement so on grows greater. And plus Brook line, additional lines out there, plus if any business coming in, profits having money available to do some of this capital without always having to go borrow the money for it. So, but all in all, fairly decent. Approach to financial statements. In theory, all those notes should answer any question. Anybody who's not familiar with the city, kind of key little sentences in there on page 20. We'll put all the park, there's like 4 different categories, but the park fund exceeded its offer. And that's just kind of a look back or kind of not getting it cleaned up at the end of the year. That happens. That's not abnormal. And then on the debt, the city was in compliance with all reserve requirements. So that's your 2 key items. Let's see. And there's really nothing else of major importance. General fund was in the budget, and park was just off 31,673, so not too bad. The loose leaf comments, basically, we just repeated last 3 years, or last comments about, and Jim, I've talked about that, on what goes to council as far as financial reports. And I said, and if you have access to the monthly, quarterly financial statements, as part of the process, you should make a motion to approve them. In the minutes of document, the council is aware of the financial condition of the city. You approve the list of bills, that's the non-reoccurring. It has to indicate you know what's going on. You should study the financials, ask questions, and then make a motion to approve them each month as they are presented.
We do the bills on the financial report. That's the non-reoccurring bills, and what we need to get into a habit of doing is actually taking the full financial monthly report that is.
It can be, you know, to some degree. I like on that one page, first page on the governmental fund activity, your revenues listed, but then you just go administration, capital. Okay. You can categorize that way. folks, they should be looking at knowing where the cash balance is at when they're making decisions on. And in the year, like on the park fund, you've been, for years and years, you's upside down. You'd finish the year and be $100,000 in the hole, and the council go on to be $200,000 in the hole. And for a city, when you go in a hole like that, you're just taking it from someone else. Checks, if you just had one bank checking account for each fund, you can't go in the hole. So when you go negative, you want over the general fund. But you should at least have a summary of that, look at it, so you're always well aware of the position of the city where you're at. If you don't understand it, we can have a working session, and I will boringly walk you through this, explaining how this works, what the balance sheet is, what the income statement is. Critical questions to always ask or be aware of. I can make it 20, how many you'd like to have. Testing invoices, just some documentation needed on that. Fraud policy, I think quite a ways on development of fraud policy, but hadn't officially adopted it. Of course, we'd recommended even having an independent fraud policy. One of the misconceptions is after the audit, we've anybody took 25 cents out of the Coke machine, we found it and shook. There's a study on that, and I hate to tell you this, but the audit, on a percentage-wise, has an 8% chance of uncovering something. Internal policies, critical eye, what you do as a council, what the city does is has about a 60% chance of deferring it or uncovering it. And one of the keys is communication, because from my experience, when something becomes unraveled, it's because an employee said something or somebody said something. Check this out deeper this way, and we start mining for what's wrong. And that's when it comes undone. On that, but internally, as far as abuse, misuse of funds, it's what you're doing internally that makes the difference. And then I think last comment was in this, because when you change a key person, this kind of happens. But your bank accounts, you have a lot of activity. You have 4 bank accounts that you put together to tie that out. About this, what I'd like to see done different on this. But with a change in personnel and that bond issue, it was substantially out. Went over it with Pete, Megan, they got it brought that closer. I was able to come back then, start the audit. I found some more. Pretty, reasonable number. And Megan's still working on it, so here, pretty soon I'll give her another adjustment, we'll have it tied out. But there's things we could do easier. But again, if that's wrong, then your financial statements are wrong. If you get something boogered up in there, in a way, a substantial amount showed you had more money than what you had. Because sometimes when you make journal entries, you go the wrong direction. And it's all related to that bonding issue, which the key is what we call source and use of funds, and that is not easy. I do that enough. I don't have too much trouble with it, but if you do these issues every so many years, the people at City Hall will get tied up in knots trying to get that sorted out. Plus, your debt issue covered several different funds, general fund, park, street, a little bit out of the water. That didn't make it any easier. But everyone's well aware of there's a certain schedule. That thing don't tie. If you can't get it tied, call me, and I'll come down and we'll tackle that together. Otherwise, pretty decent year. Not bad. I just hope we can keep it up. Any questions?
Council, questions, comments, discussion for Marshall Decker?
You can always call me 8 to 5, and I'll answer your questions.
Not after 5 though, huh?
Yeah, and you better make it 3:30. I'm getting older and I
You go to bed.
Sometimes this old body by 3:30 or 4, especially if I'm putting all these things together, I'm just going, I'm out of here.
His tea time's at 3:45, but he
Yeah.
can get there in time.
But you know, that ain't working, is it?
No. Any questions, comments from Marshall? Overall, we're still making progress. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you keep doing that, most all the balances were to the positive. But you're large enough, that's why you don't keep a firm hand on it. It can get out of control pretty fast, especially if we have, who knows, if you have that double-dip recession and sales tax drops off again. That park has got, with Park 1 and 2 sales, Greene County sales tax, that's been a good source of revenue for parks that normally they haven't had before that.
Right.
The other thing, that law enforcement sales tax is kind of I can tell you never know what Greene County's gonna send you. You get a flat check and all of a sudden here goes a big check. Well, what if one year you don't get that big check? 'Cause that's made the general fund look pretty good, some of this catch up. But I don't have a lot of confidence that every year you're gonna get that. And the year you don't get it, it can, your general fund could drop substantially, so.
We've been fighting.
Not that I'd wanna cut Mark's budget.
You walked out for a reason. We've been fighting consistency on that as well.
Yeah.
From Greene County. It's a fight that we haven't won yet, but it's a fight that we've fought, at least. Try to say, give us some consistent numbers. Give us your numbers, we'll help you calculate it. Just give us some numbers.
But looking at it, you know what I'm saying there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going along, I forget what the number is, 5,600 or,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden here goes this big old check, and you go, well, thank you, but
Yeah.
why do we wait on that? So I don't know.
We're in the same boat.
But the year we don't get it, we're gonna see it. Because when you're budgeting, you start planning for the uncommon, because every year it's happened. And you go, well, it came through last year, and I assume it'll come through again. And the first year it doesn't, you go, and it might, depends on when that hits, it might be towards the end of the period, and you're going, gee, there's not enough time to cut. And that's what dips in that million, whatever, but also, you got enough balance there to give you a year or two to react if you saw serious downtrend.
Any other questions, comments, discussion, council, for Marshall Becker? Ask now, this will be coming under a resolution to approve the audit, if you have questions now. Anything at all? All right, Marshall, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the gifts.
It shouldn't be gifts, they may have.
Marshall's not passing out buttons. No. All right, next item on the agenda, I'd like to open up a public hearing. The City Council, City of Republic, Missouri, concerning the approval of an ordinance amending Title IV Land Use, Chapter 410 Subdivision Regulations for the City of Republic, Article 2, Minor Subdivisions, Section 410.110, Minor Subdivisions, by amending a regulation concerning the limited employment of minor subdivisions. Mr. Tyson, welcome, sir. Please give the council an overview before we get to public input.
Good evening. This ordinance will remove what we call the one-and-done rule on minor subdivisions. Currently, you can perform one minor subdivision on any property, and then you're done forever. There is a gap in there between that one minor subdivision that you get to do and then major subdivision, which is 5 or more lots that you're creating. We're going to close that gap by this ordinance and allow people to fill it in with a couple more minor subdivisions, potentially, so long as they don't otherwise qualify as a major subdivision.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to open it up now to anyone that would like to speak in favor of this particular public hearing. Please step forward, state your name, sign in, give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, I'd like to open it up now to anyone wishing to speak against this particular public hearing. Please step forward, state your name, sign in, give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, public hearing closed. I'd like to open a public hearing of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri concerning an ordinance amending Title IV, Land Use, Chapter 405, Zoning Regulations for the City of Republic, Article 1, in general, Section 405.2020, definitions, and Article 7, additional district provisions by adding Section 405.660, sexually orientated business locations, and Article 8, special use regulations, Section 405.670 generally. Mr. Derrickson, please give us the overview, sir.
Yes, if you'll recall, 3 or 4 months ago, I included a real rough draft along with a memo of this proposed ordinance in your red folder for you to review at that time and come forward with any questions. We have since then gone ahead with taking this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they have passed it on to council for approval. As set out in the purpose of this is to address an issue where right now, where code reads, our regulations are in the special use permit section. I along with attorneys we've talked to in Kansas City that have assisted us on some zoning issues, feel like that's not the proper place for it, that it could be challenged and is constitutionally suspect. So basically what we're doing is moving it out of the use permit section, putting it in its own section, and also with the idea of relying on the state law. Last year, 2010, the state legislature passed some statutes regulating the sexually oriented businesses in the state, and so that's on the books. They have quite a bit of regulation. It'd be my recommendation for council is letting the state be the lead in the detailed regulation of it. That those statutes also provide that the city can regulate areas that don't conflict with the state statutes, and so that's why we've moved our the issue that were in the special use permit area out into a separate ordinance. So we're basically keeping the same things that we have, only putting them in a different location. And you should have a memo also, because of kind of a back and forth on how we were going to do this. I had one section out of that special use permit section, and initially we were going to have a separate standalone ordinance mirroring the state statute. Decided to change course and just rely on the state statute and let them do the enforcement. I neglected to bring that back into the proposal that you have before you tonight. So if you choose, you can make a motion to amend that to actually put that section back into what you're considering tonight. And I think Garrett also wanted to add a couple of classifications that are similar to C1, the Main Street and commercial office, and because they're all basically related, and so those two amendments will get to that in the on the agenda.
I'd like to open it up now to anyone wishing to speak against this particular public hearing. Please step forward, state your name, and give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, I'd like to open it now to anyone wishing to speak for this particular public hearing. Please step forward, state your name, sign in, give us your best. Seeing none, public hearing closed. I'd like to open it up now to citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak to any item on the agenda? Please step forward, state your name, sign in, give us your best 3 minutes. Seeing none, citizen participation closed. Need a agenda?
Motion.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Carries. Move on to financial report. Mr. Harris? Anything to add on the financial questions for Mr. Harris regarding financial report?
Not much. This is what Marshall's talking about. This 2-week period, you're looking at expenditure, non-recurring, about $62,000. We spend about $1.4 million a month. And that's what Marshall's talking about, is what we bring to you is the non-recurring. The where the big money moves, nobody ever sees that. And that's what Marshall was talking about there. It needs to be somebody that looks at that himself. I trust her, so I don't look at it either, so Megan approves it. That's what Marshall's talking about. There are two ways to do that. One is, would you bring all the reports in here and people can go through them? And the other is you could have a couple of the council members and go through it with Megan and whoever takes my place. But what it does is it gives the council members a sense of how the money flows and goes. We start the year with a budget of $1.5 million, $15.5 million. It's almost committed, which is another euphemism for spent, in January. There's very little discretionary money in there that you need to see. For this 2-week period, Mark did come up with some money for the annual maintenance on his live scan system over in the police department, and that was the bulk of their expenditure. Sewer paid for some legal expertise, some pump repairs, and that's just normal routine work for the wastewater department. Street, Nick went in for some base rock, some precast concrete, and some precast concrete mix. And recreation, you look, tickets and stuff for the ball game. What you don't see is when he resells and issues that stuff, it comes back in as revenue. So you see the expense here, but there'll be a revenue line after the game that will wipe that out. Hopefully it'll be a plus. And then there was about $7,000 park, and that's for Jared's pool supplies, and concession supplies. And when we talk about I would point out to you that the concession pays a fair amount of its own way over there and in paying for the debt and debt service on the aqua park. Yes.
Questions, comments, discussion from Mr. Harris on financial report. Anything at all? Need a motion to approve financial report? A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Mr. Christian, you have anything? Okay, fantastic. We have a litany of future community events. August 1st, Pass the Kid competition begins. August 2nd, special city council meeting, 6 p.m. August 5th through the 7th is the sales tax holiday, holiday here in Republic. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're one of the only municipalities in the area participating again. August 6th is the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield Parade on Street, which I will be attending apparently. On August 8th, registration for youth fall soccer begins. Also, registration for fall co-ed soccer begins also. August 11th is the last day to register for the first annual Youth Tigger Triathlon. Jared, tell us a little bit about that, if you would. Come up to the podium. I want to know a little bit more about the Youth Tigger Triathlon.
Certainly. Tremendously excited to add this event. A big weekend for triathlon for us. To participate in the regular Republic Tiger Tri, you have to be 16 plus. And we've gotten all kinds over the years. You know, hey, my child's 8, my child's 9, would love to do something like this. So we added it this year. It's kind of get a trial thing for us this year. I think we're almost close to full. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that's for ages 5 through 12. We still have a little bit of gap there. USAT regular 16 to our regular try, so we still gotta fill that gap, but tremendously excited about that. Now, for safety precautions, we're keeping that all within Miller Park, not ways or anything like that, so it's been well received. Look forward to being a good success.
How far do they have to run and swim and?
It's kind of 6 to 8. You just got to go one length of the pool. You got to ride a bike approximately 7/10 of a mile, and you run about 3/10 of a mile. So not exhausting things, but and we let them have training wheels too.
Very nice.
Yes.
Daniel, you should be able to participate.
It should.
Well, no, you can't. You can't run.
Thank you for the information, Jared. Thank you. This is the last day to register for the 5th Annual Republic Tiger Triathlon, and August 12th is the first annual Youth Tigger Triathlon. August 12th through the 14th is the reenactment of the Battle of Wilson's Creek. August 13th is the 5th Annual Republic Tiger Triathlon. Also on August 13th, Operation Church. August 18th through 20th is the Kiwanis Fall Festival. August 27th is the Republic's City of Hope to be held at Republic Community Center. Back to school, parents will be quite a few resources there available for kids and parents as well. On September 16th through 18th is Republic's Large, a gathering of individuals for Republic Steam Engine Days, and October 1st is Pumpkin Days. Board Commission and Committee reports, Board of Adjustment August 16th, City Council August 2nd, special meeting August 8th, August 22nd. Planning and Zoning is August 15th. Need a motion, bill number 11-16, we need a motion to leave that one on the table.
Motion.
Second, to leave bill number 11-16 on the table until it is completed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Registering of bill number 11-17.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of Special Obligation Bond Series 2011 of the City of Republic, Missouri, and authorizing therewith.
Mr. Harris, welcome back. Give us the overview, sir.
Yes. We've got two more COP issues funding. One of them is the infill for the police department's basement, and that's a small one. The amount to be and then we have the bigger one, which is the Aqua Park. It's a $4 million issue. The amount to be refunded is a little over. Now, we've got to pay the debt regardless when we talk about principal. Now, figures, but trust me, as you look in there and say that's not the same figure, they can all be reconciled. It's just how you get to them. I generally take with the COPs is if we stay just like we are, how much do we have to pay until they're paid off? And then we take the number runs that Carl brings to us from Stiefel Nicholas, and we run them and see how much we have to pay off and what the difference is. Effectively, what we will do is somewhere along the line between principal and interest or an interest only, we'll cut the interest payments in about half. What we're going to save is about $870,000. Depending on what the government does on August the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, you know. If the markets hold, and they're very likely to, because people are beginning to realize there's money there now to pay the debt, it's just how the administration, what they want to pay first. So it may not bother the markets. If it does not bother the markets, we will have gotten through the 2010 issue and the 2011 issue at some very, very low prices. Now, in the refunding, we asked Carl to run those numbers, and Carl's here tonight to answer any questions that you would like to have answered. We'd like to pay the same amount. We don't want a lower payment. We don't want to get any money back. We want it to all go into the savings, and we don't want to pay it a longer period. We want to shorten the debt. In other words, we want to get out of debt. The city spent a number of years doing certificates of participation where every time they were projected to rate increases come along. So David thinks he's got additional money coming next year, and I sent him a note that his bond payments have just gone up. And we will put an end to that with this one tonight. Now, so the savings is going to be about $871,000. There is a lot of information that you have there. When I ask you to vote on the ordinance, the city council is accepting for responsibility for everything that's in here. Stephen Nicholas serves as the investment, the bond buyer and seller. Gilmore Bell serves as the bond attorney, but it's not their responsibility, it's ours. So, when you look at the ordinance, there's a lot in there. There's a thing in there called the official statement. That's worth reading because you'll get a lot of information about the city. And you may think, I know all there is to know about the city. This is written for the guy who's going to buy the debt that we're issuing. And so that's where you get to see what he's going to look at in the official, the attachment to it. Now, one of the things that goes with the bond issue is who's going to hold the money and do the paying and everything else. And that will be the bank, UMB Bank, that will do that for us. And they're the ones who are doing the 2010. Security for the bonds. We've gone to a standard bond issue instead of a certificate of participation. People talk about bond issues and they think about general obligation bonds, generally take taxes to pay them. The standard obligation bond is very little different from a COP. It's an annual obligation, and what's pledged to pay it is a full faith and credit of the city. It's an annual appropriation. Read this, you can come up with the impression that, well, if I don't want to pay this in 2012, I don't have to pay it, and you don't. But you will never borrow another time from anybody, period. Your credit rating tanks, and you may have to fire, but you're going to pay your debts. That's what it says in the full faith and stuff of the city. So there's no annual obligation for the tenants. Continuing disclosure. The government passed some additional rules, and it's worth looking into this thing for what we have for continuing disclosure requirements. It used to be that all we had to do was send in a copy of our audit, pretty much okay. Now then, we have to send the audit. There's a thing called an EMMA report. EMMA is an acronym. And then there are the provisions in 6 for all the things that can change that you have to report. Within here, there is an agreement, compliance services agreement, and that's listed on the index of your POS or the ordinance. Gilmore & Bell normally charges us a healthy amount each year for our. Now, we'll have arbitrage that's paid on the Fire Station 2, the 2000 issue, and the 2011. Report, we have to comply with Rule 15.6, the EMMA reports, and all that stuff. Mark Grimm said $1,100 a year, if you agree to it, we will do all that. It's a deal we can't afford to pass up. They're going to ask us for information, but they'll take it, market it, do what needs to be done with it, get it to the SEC, and the other people need the information. And for $1,100, it is an outstanding deal. see, the form of the bonds, it just talks about how they're issued, how they can be transferred. The preliminary statement is information about the city and so forth, and the form of the bond purchase agreement. That's how Carl's gonna buy the bonds, and how he can transfer them, and what he can do with them, and so forth. There are about 4 enclosures here that relate to the bond issue, and there's 4 on, about 4 on each side, something like that, 3, 4, 5 on file with Brenda. So what we're going to do is refund the 2003 to 2004. We're going to cut our cost avoidance about $871,000, and we're not going to do anything different than we've been doing all along. We do have some additional to make sure that we comply with. Gilmore and Bell will take care of those for us. All we have to do is what they ask. So I would recommend that we proceed with refunding. And if things do not go well with the governments, then we don't, right? That's correct. So we're not locked in until we have a special session and the council says, do it. And we're not going to get that until the bonds are taken care of. In other words, say, go out and sell the bonds and the bond sale starts. It will start before that, and they will have that taken care of. Stephen Litchfield doesn't want to buy all these bonds and have them laying around on their desk as paperweights for a long time. So they're going to buy them, but they've got a place that they can dispose of. So if nothing rocks, we'll be able to refund these at a pretty good price. So I'm happy to sacrifice Carl.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Harris? Or Carl, since he is Mr. Ramey. Go ahead, Shane.
I read in here, basically, it was in one of the whereases.
Carl.
Basically, we're authorizing these special obligation bonds for a total of, 3.535. Yet we're asking for 3.875. Now, is coming from the reserves.
Right.
I assume that 100,000 of that is for accrued interest, since there's really only a 340 difference.
And the fees that go
Is $100,000.
That's right. Numbers may be different, but they're all reconciled.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Would question, if we took that $440,000 in reserve and just applied them towards these COPs, perhaps even knocking out the police fund and the port, what's the difference in savings as opposed to that?
Well, we can't do it. Now, with
We can't do it.
that reserve is to pay the lien holder. It shows on our balance sheet. It's ours. We can't do anything with it to make a payment, in which case Hypo Bank will make the payment for it.
Okay.
Or it carries to the end, and it pays about the year and a half's worth of principal and interest. So we can't touch that until we get to the end.
It's an all or nothing with it.
Okay. It's like an escrow account.
I assume that's what I needed to ask. Thank you. I actually had, somewhere in here, I didn't understand what it was saying, but both these COPs show the maturity date of September 13th of this year. If that's the case.
You thought you just wanted to leave. Go ahead.
It is a little bit, they're callable.
The what?
Callable. That means that until this call date, we can't do anything with them. But with the call date, we can call them, which forces the maturity to be that date.
Okay. So you could issue the bonds and start the whole process tomorrow, but you can't September 13th.
No, actually, they are going to be a current call, as of August 1.
August 1, I think.
And so, under the rules, you would consider that to be, eligible for refunding at that point. So the final they're callable at any time,
After
you know, without any penalty to. If you were to attempt to call them before that time period, the federal tax law then limits be able to refund those bonds again until the next call date. It's called an advanced refunding. These will be what current refunding. So you now have you're fully eligible to refund those bonds. There is on the 2004. Those bonds are August 1. I'm not sure where you're getting the September 13th. Because that's an odd date for me to pull from.
I think it's, I want to say section.
For the searching would help.
Wouldn't that be something?
It's in the
Now, with the call date, we've got a little bit of a privilege.
Yeah, see what, we've got, it's the 2004 series here with the, not sure date of August 2012. That's not where I saw it.
But that date does not.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's in section 507.
It's on page, it's bill number 11-17 on page 7. Paragraph C under section 502. Let's see, series 2003. On the series 2004 refund on September 13th.
Hereby called the prepayment
Okay.
prior to maturity on
Now,
September 13th.
okay, what happens is that we pick, let's what we intend to do. You have a special meeting that night. You will approve what Pete referred to as the bond. Still have within the confines of the existing bond issue, we have to give those bondholders at least 30 days, no less notice that their bonds are actually going to be called. So Gilmore and Bell determined that from their standpoint, the best time is September 13th. And so one of the things we have to do then is we have to say, okay, we will have to pay interest up to, and so we will pay the principal and the accrued interest. So that's the significance of the September 13th date. Bondholders, the current bondholders will actually get their money.
That's when they'll be refunded.
That's right. But once the ordinance on second reading and the bond purchase agreement, that bond issue, the 2000 now are put over here, and they're basically considered over and done with. They're closed.
That's your question? Okay. Questions, comments, discussion, council?
Yes.
It's a good question. Go ahead, Mr. Grooms. While you're at it, go.
Unfortunately, I just started writing a bunch of stuff here.
Thank you for reading it, too.
Well, unfortunately, as I'm going through here trying to figure out my questions, part of the problem is as I read further, I answered questions that I had written down originally, so. There was one other thing that I really I wasn't quite sure of. The person who's going, or the entity, UMB, I believe, who will take care of the selling of the bonds,
We'll sell the bonds. UMB Bank will serve as paying agent.
Paying agent, that's the term I was looking for. Receive a fee in exchange for their services. Is that calculated into the savings?
Charges each year becomes an annual fee.
Will it be a percentage or a flat rate?
Flat dollar.
They generally run somewhere between anywhere from a flat.
It's really nothing.
They make they're holding, like UMB right now is holding that $15,500. there,
They make their money by selling the bonds for higher than they bought them.
well, Carl, Stephen Nicholas will, that's right, they will pre-sell the bonds, and then when they get the okay, that the bonds can go, then they go ahead and make the transfer.
Of what happens in terms of a bond sale. What you're doing and what Jim and Pete have done to this point, we were able to secure an A rating for these bonds, which means that your GO rating is essentially, compliment you on that, and it certainly has a major impact on the good financial practices, a good balance sheet, good management structure, those kinds of things play to the cost of your money. It's just kind of like the commercial with the credit scores. But so at this point, you basically set in motion the next step, which is for us to take and go to the market. We will pre-market. It's actually been out on our screen already. I had a meeting here last Thursday. I met with the field office, and they're chomping at the bit because they've got clients that would like to buy your bonds, because the last time of the 2004s out of our Springfield office on a retail basis. So there's some Republic. But on Tuesday, we will, on Monday afternoon, we will have a conference call. But we will have a conference call with Jim. We will talk about what the market is, say something, and Pete alluded to it. What's happening right now in Washington may or may not have an impact. At least suggest that we remain fluid. If we don't feel that it's appropriate for us to go into the market because of what's happening, we will advise Jim of that. It's kind of good, would be then kind of a state, because we'll just have to see what transpires. That's the best I can tell you, because I don't have a crystal ball. Assume we're under a normal set of circumstances. On Tuesday morning, we actually, after for pre-selling, the order period runs usually 2 to 3, sometimes 3.5 hours. Bonds to institutional and retail purchasers. As Pete's heard this speech before, we're the last firm in Missouri sales and the desk that sells your bonds. And so what then happens is we will come back with our results. Hopefully, our goal is to oversubscribe each of these maturities. Remember, you will have bond purchasers that will be, as you looked at the debt service schedule for each one of those years, that's a bond. And you will have purchasers that are interested. Some are interested in shorter, those first few years. Some are more interested in longer ones. So, our goal then is to oversubscribe, bring down the interest rates, and we'll continue to bring down those interest rates until we clear the market and we feel that we have gotten the best results for you. We will then come back, report back those results, and if we get the nod from Jim, then the next step is for Mark Grimm and his group to take our numbers. He'll go back, he will fill out, if you will, what's necessarily to change in the ordinance. And as I understand it, the ordinance, the second reading would be a substitute bill. And then, so what you will see the next time is actually what those, the results of going into the market. And, as Pete said, we're looking at some significant savings. I would say that the action that you took last year when we compressed the repayment schedule. This is going to mirror that same, is going to have resulted in at least, I like Pete's phrase, the avoidance. And, you really are, in many ways, are setting, future councils with other opportunities and at the same time not being burdened with excessive debt. Did I overkill that one?
One thing Carl said about stay tuned. Things do not go well next week. Take 2 aspirin, drink your Coke, sit down. In a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, the bond market is what it is. And it'll settle back out again, and then we'll check the markets again and steep a little for us.
Save the city $800,000, I'm sure we can all be flexible. Mr. Quickenberry, do you have a question, sir?
Because of our public hearing notices and the time frame that we have to approve this, I know how the stock market moves pretty rapidly. Is the bond market like that, or are you reserving and holding these ahead and we have that time period to approve it and they're already locked in? Or do we miss out on something? It is like a roller coaster for several weeks.
Well, the time limit that has been chosen for us is the optimal time to enter. We're past the optimal time, we can use a term that's less optimal. How much less, nobody really knows, but it won't be much. It's gonna be out in third and fourth digit more than likely. If the Treasury doesn't change interest rates, the market's probably gonna stay pretty close like it is.
The investor today is somewhat fickle from time to time. Right now, municipal or tax-exempt bonds, we are trading 80, 85%, 90%. That shifts a little bit of a Treasury bill. So a Treasury bill is still trading higher than the tax exempt. One of the things that I think that is good for Republic is that the maturity schedule is short. We only go out to 22, and that is in what they call the yield curve. That's an area that's not fluctuating much. That's still considered short term. Where we're seeing the greatest fluctuation is 30 years. I've got a sewage treatment plant that I'm supposed to finance for 30 years, and that rate has bounced up. So I think right now you're still in very good shape. It's just a matter of whether or not there's craziness that in the market, and so I'm at this point I'm anticipating a resolution, and I'm anticipating that come Tuesday we will be able to go in the market. Would be remiss if I didn't at least let you know. We may need to be flexible.
Okay. Other questions, comments, discussion? Again, council, this is a first read. Questions come up. Make sure we ask those. Having tentatively right now, we do have a special meeting scheduled for August 2nd, and that will be at 6 o'clock. Mr. Ramey, or Mr. Harris, anything to add as addition? Go ahead.
I just want to thank Pete and Jim. They have both worked very hard through all of this, and quite honestly, they, over the last 2 years almost now, they have done a great job, and it's always a pleasure to work with somebody that is as helpful as these two are, and I thank you. I thank the council for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Pete. Any other questions, comments, discussion, council? Seeing none, this is the first read. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you, sir. Thank you. The next item, Bill number 11-18, has been removed from the agenda, so please make note. Springfield apparently has a few changes on this particular one before we can approve it. Therefore, we are removing that from the agenda until the said changes have been made and approved staff. Need a motion to have the first reading of bill number 11-19.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, Title IV, Land Use, Chapter 410, Subdivision Regulations for the City of Republic, Article 2, Minor Subdivisions, Section 410.0, Minor Subdivisions, by amending a regulation concerning the limited employment of minor subdivisions.
Mr. Tyson, please give us the overview, sir.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, the city, in a sense, offers two types of subdivisions, minor and major. The minor subdivision is intended to be applied in those situations where a property is going to be split or divided into multiple pieces from one, where there is no need for construction or installation of public infrastructure, meaning streets, sewer and water mains, things of that nature. Just a basic split where the city services are already there. They're already right there, and you're just splitting the property. There are 8 stipulations that the code lays out to qualify for a minor subdivision. And the 8th one is a rule that I call the one and done rule, where any tract or parcel in the city can be subdivided by minor subdivision once and then no longer be subdivided by that method ever again. There are situations that I have several situations I have run across in my short time here where we'll have somebody propose to do a minor subdivision on property they own. I will take that information, compare it to those 8 stipulations, and they will qualify for all of them except for the 8th. They have previously had a minor subdivision. But in every other sense, the utilities are there. It would just be in most cases, another single-family residence that could potentially be added, so it's not a substantial increase in demand on city services, at least in my opinion. And so, and the other thing is the intent of that 8th one, that one and done rule, is to prevent people from minor subdivision to circumvent the major subdivision process, where a major subdivision is you're creating 5 or more lots and adding all this infrastructure. So you have situations where they've split off and created 2. Well, you could still split 2 more and still not have done the 5. That would push you over into major subdivision. So this ordinance would, in a sense, provide some relief for those properties where they could do that additional split so long as it didn't otherwise qualify as a major subdivision, and not be stopped by that one and done rule.
Questions, discussion, comments from Mr. Tyson? Mr. Groot?
So, under no circumstances would more than 4 tracts ever be able to be created out of a single tract without applying for a major subdivision?
That's the intent.
Okay. Is there a minimum time limit between splits? I mean, could I come in today and ask for tomorrow and ask for a second one, the day after and ask for a third?
That would be possible. So long as you did not create more than 4.
You come in for a minor subdivision and say, I just want to create 4 lots, it's just a minor subdivision. You're done.
That's correct.
Okay.
You could do 4 or 3 separate ones in quick procession.
Answer your question? Okay. Other questions, comments, discussions? Council, this is a first read. Second reading will take place at our regularly scheduled meeting on August 8th. In the meantime, I ask Mr. Tyson if you need clarification. Anything else on this particular item? Seeing none, move on to the next item. Motion to have first reading of bill number 11-20.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the Republic, Missouri, amending Title IV Land Use, Chapter 405 Zoning Regulations for City of Republic, Article 1, General, Section 405.020 Definitions, and Article 7 Additional District Provisions by adding Section 405.660 Sexually Oriented Business Locations, and Article 8 Special Use Regulations, Section 405.670.
Thank you, Brenda. Mr. Derrickson, would you please give us the overview on that very, very long title?
Kind of just briefly restate what it said earlier in the public hearing. The gist of this is to move the regulations out of the special use permit area, put them into a standalone ordinance, and then also rely on the state statutes for your enforcement of the prohibitions that the state legislature has put into effect. One of the things you'll note in the very long fifth whereas section, that is based upon some U.S. Supreme Court cases that say when in these types of businesses you're dealing with First Amendment issues. That's why you have to be very careful in how you're handling those. And one of the things required is that you take a look at statistics from other areas as to the impact sexually oriented business on a community. And so I have available in this 3-ring binder for your review all of those studies that are set out in the there. So you're welcome to come by the office anytime you have 8 or 10 hours and take a look at these. So that's the background for why you're going to look at possibly passing this.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate that.
Yeah, whatever.
Put that on the school. Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Derrickson?
I'll see. Show you what.
That's the biggest binder I think I've ever seen.
So you know what it is.
And Mr. Derrickson, if I'm not mistaken, would you give them a little bit of background on your history with this type of information in Springfield?
Yes. Well, basically, I got assigned a similar type thing in Springfield and spent a year or so perusing the internet, doing the studies and everything to help develop sexually oriented business ordinance that the city of Springfield adopted. So I've used that expertise in coming up with this one.
Just wanted you guys to know. That's a big book. But anyway, questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Derrickson? Go ahead. Have you really read that? He put it together.
I went out on the internet and got all these studies and made sure they were relevant to what we were. Yes, I've looked through most of that stuff right there. Yeah.
He knows it takes 10 hours, Jim. He knows it takes 10 hours.
There are no illustrations, though, Jim.
Well, that'll let Daniel. Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Derrickson. Mr. Tyson's here. Mr. Krischke, you have a question for Mr. Derrickson?
To make sure, Garrett, do you mind going over the zoning classifications that are in this as well?
Sure. Just real quick before, I failed to mention on the last, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to the council for the last bill and this bill as well. But what Jim mentioned about the zoning districts, when I was reviewing this before it went to Planning and Zoning, I noticed that the districts in which this type of business would be prohibited included agricultural, residential, C1, but there were 2 other that were as restrictive, if not more restrictive, as C1, which are the commercial office and Main Street district that weren't included in there. Them being as restrictive or more restrictive, I thought it would be suitable for them to be included in that category as well, if that's what to do. There aren't actually any properties in the city that have that zoning, but it's available for property owners.
With what Garrett said there, he's asking for council consider an amendment to the bill addressing that issue. As I think I mentioned during the hearing, that because of the way we were looking at this initially, I had taken out a portion of what was in the current special use permit on dealing with windows and entries and things like that, and was intending to put it in, and then we decided we're just going to rely on the state law, and I neglected to move that back in. And if council chooses to adopt Amendment B, that is in essence moving back into what you're considering, that section that's already in the special use permit.
Amendments need to occur now or next time?
You can do them now.
Before we get started, just remember, if I'm not mistaken, council, we have two that they are proposing to make. One on, as he said, inserting language, and the other one making the changes on two different sections. So, with that said, Mr. Funkenberry?
I'd like to make one of those motions.
Please do, sir. Go right ahead.
Adopt Amendment A, and that would be a move to amend Bill 11-20 by inserting the language into of Section 405.660 to read as follows: sexually oriented businesses shall not have the following zoning classifications: residential or agricultural, and C1 commercial, office, or main.
I have a motion to amend Bill number 11-20. Need a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Bill has been amended. Any other amendments, Mr. Groves?
I'd like to go ahead and move that we insert the language into subsection 3 of section 405.6. The building in which the sexually oriented business is located shall be designed in such a fashion that all openings, entries, and windows prevent views into such establishment, walkway, street, or other public area. Furthermore, no merchandise or pictures of products or entertainment on the premises shall be displayed in windows where such merchandise or pictures can be viewed from the sidewalk in front of the building.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Motion and a second. You made that, you seconded the motion, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Carries, thank you. Bill has been amended a second time. Other questions, comments, discussions for Mr. Tyson or Mr. I thought there was one more. No. Just those two? Yes, sir. Just those two. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Anything at all? Again, council, this is a first reading. If there are questions or need for clarification, please contact Mr. Derrickson or Mr. Tyson for their information, or Mr. Krischke if the answer does not, if you do not get an answer. Moving on to other business resolutions and discussion. Resolution number 11-R-37, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the execution of an engineering services contract with CJW Transportation Consultants, LLC, for construction design services relating to the signalization of Oakwood Avenue, US Highway 60. Need a motion?
Motion?
Second. I have a motion and a second. Welcome, Mr. Brock. Please give us the overview, sir.
As council is aware, we had a 50/50 cost share agreement with MoDOT to improve the intersection there in front of the public board. The obligations, or the city's responsibilities on the front end is to contract to have the design completed. We are anticipating, or we will be using STP funds on the back end of this agreement, so we're required to follow same process that we do for any other federal highway funds, which means a formal selection process, a MoDOT-approved engineering contract. City staff organized the selection process. We had 6 firms that submitted statements of qualifications. City staff shortlisted 2 firms. Those firms came and gave a presentation to some select staff members, council members Gary Wilson and Jeff Klinkenbeard. We all ranked the 2 presentations, and CJ Transportation was determined to be the best firm to complete the design. Contract negotiations with CJW went well. We got the price in well under our budget number, budgeted at $85,000, did not to exceed contract price, $76,541.20. The terms of the contract's been reviewed by the state. They're comfortable that this adequately describes the scope of work, prepare plans and specifications, and have given the city the authorization to move forward with the award. The resolution authorizes execution of the contract to design the intersection.
Questions, comments, discussion from Mr. Brock? Mr. Grooms?
I'm just wondering about the railroad.
Mr. Brock?
That will come along shortly. There's nothing in our contract that says you are to design a certain configuration. That is up to the city to direct our consultants when they're on board. What we have planned is a MoDOT-sponsored public informational meeting in August in which we will present a number of conceptual drawings for the intersection. You mentioned the north leg of the intersection with the railroad, 2 variations specific for that, one with that intersection being signalized, one with that intersection being closed. There is another design that's becoming popular in some of the rural areas called a J-turn or a jug handle, where you could visualize heading west down Highway 60, you actually travel past your intersection, you make an interior U-turn, travel back east, and make a right turn south on Oakwood. Not certain that that's a...
Just go to Buffalo.
With the double drive-through at McDonald's. That's not...
Get on 65, drive to Buffalo, you'll see the J-turn.
However, the goal is to solicit feedback from folks that would use that intersection. So we would present a number of different alternatives. This would allow the City of Republic, Greene County is an interest because of the farm road there, and MoDOT to hear what the reaction is to some of the potential outcomes out there. Early or mid-August public informational meeting won't interfere with our progression on design. They'll have a number of weeks doing field work, a number of different areas that won't change regardless of what final design we come up that they can be working towards.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Have we talked to MoDOT about lowering the speed limit there? That's 60 right there, right?
It is.
And you're gonna have another stoplight. It seems to me like that's a little hairy.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, because this is the same commitment we got when Lowe's built, and that is, the commitment is when the stoplight is in, they will do a speed study, and if the 80th percentile or 85th percentile of drivers dictate or show that there needs to be a reduction in speed limit, they will do a reduction in speed limit. Certainly will slow folks down out there.
Hopefully.
It will. But the speed limit is, I guess their perspective is, the speed limit is independent of our intersection project.
Mr. Christian, go ahead, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh, no, there's a few other, and this is a little more complicated, than what it might appear. There's, besides the City of Republic and MoDOT entering into an agreement, that intersection of that railroad crossing is actually a Greene County crossing. So Highway Department, also is playing a part in this, as is BNSF, in the signalization and the synchronization of all of the lights and the gates and all of the rest. So the preferred route, if you can call it a preferred route, I mean, MoDOT is willing and able to go out for an informational meeting, but the preferred route at this time is to close that railroad crossing and not have to deal with all of the synchronization troubles and the expense that we would have to incur with BNSF. But we're not sure that's going to be preferable to all of the neighbors out there, so that's where this public information meeting will occur, more in the front of the process than the back of the process. Typically, we design it, MoDOT goes out, does their meeting, presents the design that has been developed, and then if there isn't any real drastic opponents to it, it'll just move forward. But they've been nice enough, and David's been able to work with them to get a meeting up front to make sure we don't spend too much of that design money going down a path that maybe would be changed. So it's the best of both worlds doing it this way, but clearly that closing of that railroad crossing would be the more inexpensive way to do things. And that's where MoDOT, I think, is leaning.
And additionally, Greene County is looking at the next, the next crossing down to the east. That is another intersection because the traffic will have to go somewhere if it's closed. So what are you gonna do? You need to go fix that. That is on their radar screen as well. So this is dealing with one intersection. Both of them are Greene County intersections over the tracks, but the stoplight at that particular intersection is our responsibility and MoDOT's responsibility. Therefore, it's kind of hard to tie both of them together. But our portion here is to the design requirements for the signal. We're working with Greene County, as Jim mentioned, as Dave has done a good job with, working with Greene County and MoDOT on working on the other intersection as well to try to, if something does get closed, what's gonna happen to this one? Because we're gonna have to, the traffic's going somewhere. But at the same time, they're gonna have to figure that one out as well. It's still not our intersection, but it's theirs, and they know that's on their radar screen as well. So BNSF is involved in this as well due to the fact that it is their crossing. And sometimes you don't mess with railroad crossings, as we found out in the past. So that's kind of that's kind of everything we know where we are right now. That's exactly where, but right in front of you is for the engineering services to help design that particular crossing. Did that answer your question? There's more information you probably ever wanted to know.
I'm just helping you out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Other questions, comments, discussion from Mr. Brock and Mr. Kirby? Anything at all? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Resolution number 11-R-3, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing repairs to the Flowserve 250 horsepower pump number 2 at the Schuler Creek Lift Station. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second. A motion and a second. Welcome back, Mr. Bryant. Please give us the overview.
You may be aware, Schuler Creek Pump Station serves about 60% of the city. Recently had a seal failure on one of the 250 horse pumps. Took that in for a defense check with Evans Enterprises, and they have prepared a repair quote. Similar issues come before in the past. The difficulty with getting pump repairs is it's quite an extensive job to have the pump removed, taken to electrical shop, opened up, and troubleshot. So getting competitive quotes is almost impossible except for the very smallest of pumps. Evans Enterprises has performed a number of similar jobs for the city. The pumps at Schuler Creek are Flowserve. At this point, Evans is has been almost exclusive on doing that repair. We do work with other electrical shops when we're able to. As noted in the resolution, they have quoted us a price of just shy of $8,500 for complete repair.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Brock? Is there a turnaround on that?
don't believe we've, got a firm one. Typically, similar pumps, it's been about a 3-week process, from the time we give them go ahead to order materials and have it returned.
Other questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Brock? Mr. Hunsinger?
Is this going to interfere with any of our customers?
Not at all, not at all. The pump station's got a 75 horse and 350 horse motor. So this is, the redundancy that's built into it will take care of any issue.
Warranty?
They do warranty their work, I believe it's 90 days.
Questions, comments for Mr. Brock? You have one?
Yeah, approximate cost of the new pump?
$45,000. And you might remember we paid $24,000 for a 75 horse pump at that location in 2009, I believe.
Yes. Anything else?
And this fixes it,
That's correct.
so they've actually seen it, whereas nobody else has.
That's correct. They split it open and
That's a good way to put it, too. Other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Carries. Resolution number 11-R-39, a resolution of the City Council of the City Republic of Missouri authorizing the extension of a license agreement with the Southwest Missouri Office of Aging, SMOA, for services at the Republic Senior Friendship Center. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Keeling, please give us the overview, sir.
Thanks, sir. This is a annual extension, come to you each and every year for this. SMOA, they operate Senior Center Monday through Friday during the daylight hours. Do a fantastic job over there. Peggy Lane is the director. Really is a win-win for all of us. If we were to that over there, we would have a lot of resources. So, they pay us $175 a month to be in the building. Helps us cover utility costs, maintenance costs, things of that nature, but it is a definite win-win agreement, so.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Keeling? Oh. They do have meatloaf on this Friday, so I'm being there at the Senior Friendship Center. Any other questions, comments, and discussion?
Do you have their menu memorized, or you just?
I just know when meatloaf is. I don't, the rest of it, I just know meatloaf's Friday. Anything else, council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Resolution number 11-R-40, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri authorizing the purchase of a new air conditioning unit for the Republic Police Department. Need a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is that you too?
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Keeling. Again.
Facility Maintenance Division has performed several repairs on an air conditioning unit at the PD for the last couple of years. The compressor on that same unit has been out, and I don't know a lot about air conditioning, but I know it's never a good thing. So we priced to have the compressor replaced or a whole new unit. Larry Gibson, our Facility Maintenance Supervisor, gathered in those bids. It is his recommendation that we go with a new unit for $3,275 from DeLong Plumbing, Heating, and Air. We also received one from Spring Mountain Air for $3,389, and Ruckman Heating and Cooling for $4,091. We have this already with DeLong Plumbing, Heating, and Air over on our recreation side. Been very happy with their service, so.
Questions, comments, discussion?
All quoting the same unit,
Yes.
like for like,
I'm sorry.
the like for like, or are you going oversized?
Amana, correct,
We're not comparing to York.
No, all of them quoted Amanas.
Good question. Other questions, comments, discussion, council? Anything at all? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? abstention? Motion carries 6-0-1.
Thank you.
The next item agenda, resolution number 11-R-41, a resolution of the City Council, City of Republic, Missouri, authorizing the approval of services agreement, the account change, and authorized account signers, and the depository services resolution for government entities with U.S. So, mouthful, need a motion?
Motion.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Welcome back, Mr. Harris, please give us a quick overview.
We're down to the last bank account and he's leaving. So if we need to keep doing business with the bank, we need some new paperwork. Now, in the you just have the one for the people who can sign the checks for the accounts and stuff. Brenda should have placed in your red folder 2 additional agreements. Those are the 2 that are really needed. The master service agreement, that's so we can do business with U.S. Bank. In other words, council to approve the resolution approving the master services agreement that allows the city, says officially the city can do business with U.S. Bank. The next one is the depository services resolution for government entities with U.S. Bank. The bank, each one of the banks that do business with has a person that works with the treasury entries, meaning that the monies that the services, us, there are government controls on what they can and can't do with those. And so when we have an issue, we go to Laurie at UM Treasury Services. If it's any other problem, we go to DeWinda Catesby to take care of that. But these are the 2 we really need. Now, the people that want to get paid, they're going to need that annex in there, 1 to pay. But we need those 3 things paid. 1, authorize the city to do business with U.S. Bank. 2 is to use U.S. Bank as a depository with the Treasury Services Agreement. And 3, people to sign the checks. And with the checks, I think the names remain the same except for Ed and Karen Freeman.
Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Harris? Anything at all? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. The next item, resolution number 11-R-42, resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri to approve the independent year ended December 31st, 2010. Need a motion?
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Harris, give us a brief overview.
Audit was just presented by Marshall Decker, and we have the word approve in here, but what everybody wants to know is, are we going to approve or are we going to accept the audit? If we don't accept the audit, we can stand by and watch. We can accept the audit, things proceed as normal.
We have that option anyway.
It's, but it's,
Have good training.
You know,
Reagan
Holiday. Reagan Holiday would very much like to have a copy of the approved resolution stuff when we get finished. It's housekeeping for the audit. Marshall was good to us in the audit. So we all know what that means, right? You know, Marshall was good to us in the audit, and I leave that with you for next year.
Fair enough. Okay. Questions, comments, discussion for Mr. Harris? Anything at all? Pete's done a yeoman's job work on this, so has Jim. Certainly appreciate both of your work on this audit. Not only the audit, but the refunding of the bonds. I think, Pete and Jim, worked hard on this. I know Pete has spent a lot of extra hours putting numbers together, because they request a lot of financial data, especially for not only the audit, but the refinancing of the bond. And Pete, we want to thank you for that. But any other questions, comments, discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Resolution number 11-R-43, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, supporting the display of the national motto "On God We Trust" in the Republic City Council chambers. Need a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. I put this under in your file, there should be a list of counties in Missouri adopting the resolution of the national motto to be displayed in our council chambers. It's a law, everybody have that list? Was that in the red folder?
No, I did not.
Okay. I will pass this around. This is a list of cities and counties in the state of Missouri that have already adopted this, Greene County being one of them, Stone County, Lebanon. Here, Ms. Poole, would you take a look at that? There are quite a few of those that are surrounding the area, and that is since there's some history behind that too, but wanted to bring that to council, see if you would like to do that, put our national motto displayed in our council chambers, nowhere else in the city but right here in our council chambers. I would move that we do that. Questions, comments, discussion for me, since I'm the one presenting it. Since it's over the other side, give it to you. And one question may come up of, do you have it in the budget to have that painted in here? Yes, we do. It's just about $100 in there to have that done. Any other questions, comments, discussion for me since I'm presenting?
Where's this gonna be?
Haven't decided that yet. There's a couple different areas we could put it at, but, haven't quite decided yet. I'm always open
Sure,
for,
we can find a place.
I'm sure we can find a place, but, always open for that discussion afterwards. Looking if the approval happens, then we'll move forward. But I'm always open for suggestions. And don't say my chair.
I think this place would be right on the top part of the window, right straight across the front.
Yes, sir. That's a good point.
Wouldn't affect Jim from seeing out, but it would be there where everybody would see it when they walked in.
Yes, sir. You are correct.
It's there.
That was vinyl,
Yes, sir.
vinyl lettering, and all that's very impressive.
Other comments, questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. That is the end of regular session. There is not any executive session. Need a motion to adjourn? Motion. I have motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much.